Hello and welcome. My name is Yevgeny Rusakov and you're watching your favorite TVP World program, Interview from Vilnius. Amid growing concerns about NATO's military readiness, delays in weapons deliveries and uncertainty surrounding the future role of the United States in Europe, questions about the alliance's ability to respond to a possible confrontation with Russia are becoming increasingly urgent. At the same time, internal divisions within NATO and the broader geopolitical role of China continue to complicate the security landscape. To discuss these developments, we are joined by Giedrimas Jeglinskas, defense and security expert and former member of the Lithuanian parliament. Giedrimas, glad to see you in our studio, sir. Thank you for joining us today.
Great to be here.
According to Wall Street Journal, Donald Trump has ordered the withdrawal of 5,000 American troops from Germany. So how does this relate to what Politico recently reported, namely that the NATO is currently unprepared for a possible military confrontation with Russia?
Now, I think we can connect a lot of different dots and try to see some some correlations, bigger picture of how this is all connected. Now, I think at the end of the day, I think we have to kind of separate these issues. So first of all, the 5,000 U.S. troops in Germany, sure, it's a sort of disappointing development that the battalion combat team will not be returning to Germany. But again, we have to look at a broader picture of where the numbers are now. I think if you look at retrospectively, historically, 2016 was a low point when we had 30,000 U.S. troops in European soil. And if you remember, then Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, then he served as a U.S. Army head for Europe, was very eloquent in his statement, saying, look, I have to do the same job with 10% of the troops that my predecessors had to do during the Cold War. So that really trough was at the 2016-2017 timeframe. And from then on, during the Trump administration, the numbers have increased, and now we have 70, 80,000, maybe close to 100,000 troops with all the supporting soldiers. So this is not the end of the world. Now, I think the 5,000 troop withdrawal, I think it really is probably there's some personal fight there between Trump and Chancellor Merz. Well, it is what it is. Now, I would not be surprised if this sort of decision would be reversed if some other agreement on tariffs, on cars or whatever can be reached. So again, this is something's happening. It's important to watch. But I think the question is, how does Europe defend itself? And I think here, where the Political article was very eloquent again in sort of explaining the key deficiencies in European defense. That has not been solved yet. We're at war for 4 years now, and we're watching Ukraine. We see now, what's going on in Iran. We see that the rhetoric and sometimes actions from the United States. But at the end of the day, Europe needs to pick up the slack, and they haven't done it. And whether it's Air Force, Navy, but the future wars will be fought at a multi-domain level. So MDO operations, multi-domain operations, that's a key element. And here we have to have capabilities in cyber, in space, in air, in naval, in land. So again, it's really a burden on the European side.
Amid these concerns, the Pentagon has reportedly warned European allies about significant delays in American weapons deliveries. So how serious is this problem in the context of NATO's overall readiness?
Well, it's an absolutely huge problem, but it's not necessarily a problem of lack of focus from the Europeans. It's truly or Americans, by the way. I think it is about the industry's ability to deliver those defense articles. I think whether it's United States or Europe, those timeframes that we're currently receiving, if you're buying now, HIMARS or other article, and you're waiting for 7 years for it to be delivered, that's quite unacceptable, I think, for anyone. So, but really, if it's not the U.S. Defense goods, well, look at the articles in Europe. I think it's the same thing, whether it's tanks or infantry fighting vehicles or ammunition. Everything gets delayed, and at the end of the day, you're getting things much, much later and a lot more expensive, by the way. The inflation hasn't it was really, inflation is there, and it's a massive inflation. So I think, and with that, whatever you increase in your budgets means you're getting less for that budget than before. So it's an industrial industrial problem, and I think what the way to do it is really to make sure that industry produces fast enough, and that we have not cracked that problem yet.
Okay, let's put it that way. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate this problem with weapons deliveries?
Well, hard to say. Maybe it's a 5, maybe it's a 6. But I think again, sometimes we look at the U.S. and we try to, okay, look, the U.S. is not delivering our systems. We need to buy from Europe. But the answer at the end of the day will be the same. The Europeans who are not able to produce the same articles at all sometimes, and sometimes if they're able to produce certain things, they will come in much delay. And I think if you look at the whole landscape of defense, it's a perennial problem. That's why a lot of countries, like, for example, we saw Poland, look to Korea, maybe some other locations where you can actually find goods much faster. And I think that's again, this is a time to finally wake up, because otherwise it's we see and another, by the way, the Iran war. That's really a reason why U.S. is unable to probably provide certain goods to Europeans, because they're fighting a war. They need to replenish their own stocks. So things are happening in the U.S. because it's fighting a war. Europeans are not fighting a war at the moment. Now, of course, we're supporting Ukraine, as we should. But I think this is not the rate at which we need to be replenishing all our stocks. Russians are producing a lot more per month. Chinese are producing a lot more. Even Iran is able to produce certain equipment, counterattack. Right. So it's a massive problem.
Politico also pointed to weaknesses in NATO's air power and naval capabilities, both of which would be crucial in a potential conflict with Russia. So what's your assessment on these vulnerabilities?
Well, I think the incidents that we've had in the past in the Baltic Sea, which is a key conduit through which Russian oil is going back and forth, but also the military transportation is going through. I think it shows that we are unable to secure the Baltic Sea completely. I think that, to me, that offers a very concrete opportunity where we need to be cooperating. Well, the Baltic states, the Nordics, Germany, Denmark, whoever's surrounding the Baltic Sea, to truly produce something that would secure the Baltic Sea. So that means investing in the naval force. That means investing in the naval autonomy, which is again something that's underlooked and I would say underappreciated at the moment at the NATO level. But it's it does take time. Of course, if a war breaks out, if a conflict breaks out between Russia and NATO, it's going to be multi-domain. It's going to be naval, air, it's going to be land. So sure, a lot of preparation is going on at this point, and we've had it for the past 10 years to build the EFPs, the brigades. So we're kind of preparing for a land war, but it's guaranteed it's going to be much broader, and it will include all the domains.
Okay, so you say that we need time for this. And looks like we don't have much time.
No, we don't. We have to start. The investments need to be made. I think we hear a lot of big announcements now from the government that how the increases in defense spending will be utilized in the next decade. I think NATO's decisions NATO allies' decisions to go to 5% by 2035 is way too late. We need to be much more urgent with our defense spending, and that's really the macro figure, kind of at the macro level. That's the top line where we need to all get to 5%. Again, maybe even more. Who knows? But if we're saying that I'm going to reach 5% by 2035, that means you're simply not growing fast enough, and that affects all the defense capability.
Okay, again, let's talk about other NATO's vulnerabilities. So the war in the Middle East has further exposed divisions within NATO. So how did the alliance end up with this situation after the unity demonstrated in 2022 NATO summit? And what can still be done to restore cohesion?
Well, I think NATO has had challenges before, many times. Suez Canal, 1950s. We have a 1989 end of Cold War, where the whole reason of NATO being existing was questioned. I think so many times NATO has adapted. Now I think we are in a unique situation now. We have a really one-of-one president of the United States who's really shifting the landscape, shifting how we see the strategic landscape. And but at the end of the day, I understand the allies that they want more information, they want more involvement in decisions by the United States, and I think here we have an opening for President Trump and his lieutenants to really go to NATO, talk to the allies, explain the reason why Iran war is happening, what's the objective, what are we trying to achieve, and I think most of the countries would happily jump into this coalition and then provide whatever is needed, whatever U.S. needs. Now, I think that means the United States president needs to lead in this effort. I think we've also seen some countries that are truly not wanting to even talk about it. They're completely against this operation, and they don't want to listen to anything. They even close some airspace or some logistical bases for the American troops. That's also not right. That's not an ally behavior. I think we need to kind of turn down the temperature a bit, get together. I really hope that the Ankara summit where NATO leaders will meet at the end of June can hopefully bring some unity in there. I think that's where that's the big hope, so that we can get some sort of decisions on that would help both U.S. fight Iran, but also hopefully get some decisions on the capability building.
You've also mentioned Ukraine. What about the China factor? What role could China play in a possible NATO confrontation with Russia?
Well, I would almost say that probably, again, I'm going to take my bet here that Russia will not attack Europe until some sort of big event happening in the world, some sort of event where all eyes are on that event, and I think that event could be China's potential, their willingness to do something with Taiwan, essentially, regarding Taiwan. I think that's the key. Now, if that becomes a reality, then I think that offers a huge opportunity for Putin to actually move on to against a NATO country. We don't know which one, for example, but because U.S. is preoccupied. U.S. is preoccupied with let's say in the Middle East matters, the Asia Pacific matters. So I think again that's another reason why we need to be preparing for that. Europe needs to truly start to build capabilities that are ready not only for the war to protect Europe, but also to the broader confrontation with China, because we will be with the U.S. in this fight.
Okay, my final question, and briefly. So let's come back to this Trump's decision to withdraw 5,000 U.S. troops from Germany. So if the United States reduces or relocates its military presence in Europe, is Lithuania prepared to host a larger number of allied troops, and how might this further affect already tense relations with Russia?
Of course, if an opportunity emerges, such as the U.S. troops are being reshuffled, moved, or some sort of other things are happening for the U.S. bases, I think we should always be in the White House. Our ambassador should be in the White House, the National Security Council, talking about this, how ready we are to host even more U.S. troops on our soil. The same thing needs, our CHOD, Chief of Defense, needs to be talking with General Donahue in Stuttgart. The minister needs to be talking to the Pentagon and so forth. All hands on board should be undertaken to ensure that look, we have incredible presence of United States troops here. We're investing a lot in the infrastructure, in all the facilities that are needed for the troops, but we can do more. If the United States decides to post those troops, we're with open arms, we're going to welcome that. We're going to invest as much as needed into the infrastructure and make sure that these units, they're not just there for the sake of being, but they actually are training, they're building readiness and so forth. So I think for sure we need to be always connecting with America at every level. And I think this is what we're trying to do. It's not easy, of course, because the decision-making is very much concentrated in the White House and in the person of the president. But that's our job. Our job is to ensure that Lithuania is secure, we maintain independence, where we are a thriving country, and that can only be done if the U.S. is on our side, is here. And I think we're very much appreciate U.S. presence, and we're ready to host more.
Nothing more to add. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I really hope to see you once again with some hot topic.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was Giedrimas Jeglinskas, defense and security expert and former member of the Lithuanian Parliament. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.